Welcome back to Balance and Chaos with
Kelley
and Gretchen and
Melanie.
So, Melanie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Melanie Brooks. I am the Regional Grant Manager for the Maine Highlands.
What does that mean?
Good question. So, the State of Maine Office of Tourism, years ago, split the state up into 8 geographical regions. The Maine Highlands region is the largest interior region. It's made up of Penobscot and Piscataquis counties. And we receive grant funding through the state to market our individual regions to potential visitors.
How do we do compared to the other regions?
Not too bad, actually. I mean, you've got, if you think about it, Maine Highlands, I would say probably the most popular regions, Greater Portland, down east in Acadia, because everybody knows about Bar Harbor and Portland.
Right.
When you think about Maine, those are probably the top 2 places. The Maine beaches is the southern state with all those glorious beaches that people go to.
People will be like, oh, I love Maine. I go to Maine I love Maine. York Beach.
Oh,
like,
yes, Ogunquit.
I'm like, talk to me when you've seen Fort Kent.
Gone to Wells every summer as a child.
Yeah. That those are wonderful places.
And their marketing plans are just a little bit different than ours. And we do things a little bit differently, but we're still bringing people in. I would say for Canadian visitation, our region and Aroostook are the top 2 regions for Canadian visitation, and that's mostly because we're right there.
Mm-hmm. What do you measure? What kind of data do you collect?
Well, the state collects data different than I collect. So the state has a lot more money, and they hire these agencies to do visitor surveys, which we have nothing to do with, but they survey the visitors, where they're going, what they're doing when they're getting there. They survey them on their visit, customer service, would they recommend Maine to other people, that sort of stuff. So it's a little bit big picture. For us, I mail out these handy dandy guidebooks. So each region has a guidebook. And we have mailed our guidebook this past fiscal year to every state in the union except Alaska.
What is wrong with Alaska?
I mean, I don't think we could get further away from Alaska.
Right. And kind of more similar.
Yeah. We see a lot of people, and this is statewide, really. We see a lot of people requesting information about our region from New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Florida. We call those like our feeder states. And so we have mailed out over 900 guidebooks, which is twice as many as we did last year, which is awesome. I want people to want to know more about the Maine Highlands. So that's the kind of information that I keep. We ask them when they request information from us, they also tell us what their interests are: camping, bicycling, lodging, all that sort of stuff. So I have that data as well.
It's interesting that you say that you didn't send any to Alaska, because when I was in college, my college roommate was from Alaska, and I forgot the service that you put in where you want to go and the price you're willing to pay, and if they find one that matched, they automatically bill you.
Like Priceline?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this happened to me, and I didn't realize that it had actually charged my card. Yeah. It was really a bad situation. So I went to use my card, I don't know, a couple of weeks later, and I had overdrawn my account because it was a debit card.
Sure.
So I went to the bank to figure out what had happened, and they said, well, you bought a plane ticket to Alaska for $550.
Which is a great price.
It was a great
Really?
price, right? And so I started to panic because I was only curious about how much flights would cost, etc. There's no way to get your money back, so I was committed to a flight to Alaska. So James ended up buying a ticket too, and we went. And so growing up in Bangor, I never perceived Maine to be beautiful or why anyone would want to live here or come here. It was really my belief is we live in a dump and there's nothing here. Why would you come here? And this is just the worst place ever to live. And when I went to Alaska, It was so beautiful. And it's really all they have there is beauty. And that's when I realized how beautiful Maine was. Yeah. It wasn't until I saw natural beauty, a different kind of natural beauty, that I could appreciate our natural beauty.
Well, I grew up in Orono. And then when it was time to graduate high school, I was like, I am out of here as fast as possible. So I left for college, and I lived in Boston for a while, and then I ended up going to grad school in New York. And I came back not meaning to stay, but it was such a nice detox from living in New York City. Yeah. So I was away for about 10 years, and then I came back and I lived in Portland for a little while. Then I moved to Bangor to work for Bangor Metro. And it's just been these past few years when I've really been focusing on the Maine Highlands and showcasing what this region has to offer, that I've sort of fallen in love with it all over again. Like, I am doing things now as a 40-year-old that I have never done before for no good reason.
Yeah, it's
like
crazy.
There's no good. Like this past weekend, some of my friends and I hiked Bourdain Mountain, which is part of the Moosehead Pinnacle Pursuit out in the Greenville area, and it was awesome. Yeah. And I had never done it before for no good reason, and so part of why
it was too close.
Well, part of why I love this job, people think we'll go to Acadia.
Yes, yeah,
but because Acadia has become this past few years just so busy, so busy. And with the road construction last year and this year, getting there used to be easy, but now it's kind of a pain.
Acadia, we always go down. We usually go down a couple times a year. I've had a season pass for a while, and the last couple of years we go down. One of the things we want to do is the Bubbles, looks like a good family-friendly trail. There has never been a place to park, and you can't park on the street. Yep. So we go to Wonderland, which is like our fallback, because the kids love it there, and it has great tide pools, and you can park on the road, so you can definitely park. And I have a I'm legit, I'm not poaching a spot. Right. And then we've tried to go into town for ice cream, and there's no place to park in town. So I actually had a friend recently who messaged me who doesn't live here, and said, I really want to come up to Maine for a night, and I want to be in Bar Harbor. And it's like, but everything's like a 2-night minimum. I'm like, well, that's how it's going to be in July and August. It just is. I'm like, well, what are you hoping to do? It's like, I just want to get away from people. And I was like, then don't go to Bar Harbor.
Go to Moosehead
Lake. I'm like, here are 20 other places that you could go to get away. But I mean, you kind of you see the pictures of Otter Cliff, you
see the pictures with no people in them, because these photographers are going at sunrise.
Right, exactly. So a picture from Otter Cliffs just won a National Park Service photo contest or whatever. And it is beautiful and it's wonderful. But when you add all those people, I would much rather be...
It's a different experience.
At a different state park on either side, or Scoodic Peninsula, or there's a million other places you can go. But there's this idea that Bar Harbor is this quiet, quaint, and it's more crowded than Bangor, I think.
By a lot.
They had that centennial celebration, which was a huge deal, and just that year was crazy, and it just hasn't stopped. So for me, that was where we used to go. We go down there camping. We'll actually take the free shuttle bus around.
We've decided that's the only way that we can do it if we go this year is to just commit to the bus. And it's sort of, but it is frustrating.
You kind of lose your freedom.
We live here.
Yeah, and you have a pass.
We have a pass. I remember there was one day with the first time we bought a pass. I bought it was Father's Day, and it was a Father's Day gift. We stopped on the way in and bought the pass. And Dave was like, you just spent $40 on a park pass. Well, I'm like, whatever. It's a national park system. Sure. It's fine. And we went to Sand Beach. It wasn't too crazy. This was a few years ago. And I was listening to these two families who their kids started playing. So the two families started talking. And one said, oh, we saved up all of our frequent flyer miles. We're from Minnesota. My husband travels for work a lot, but we finally had enough. And we are here finally. And the other woman was like, oh, we've been waiting. We've been saving up for 3 years. We're from Ohio and we finally made it. And isn't it beautiful? Isn't it wonderful? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, Dave, do you hear this? You're complaining about a $40 pass. We drove here in our own car. We have lunch. I made it home and it's still cold. We're so close that you lose that perspective that people literally make this a once in a lifetime trip.
It's a bucket list trip for so many people that don't live here.
Dave.
We forget that. We forget
I still
that.
love you, Dave.
So my friend, I told her, I was like, well, what do you want to do? She's like, I like to see the stars. I'm like, well, maybe if you came for the Night Sky Festival, but if you want it, there's 1,000 other places that would be better for stargazing.
I was at
Acadia.
a meeting the other day, and there were some women that were representing the Millinocket region and the Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument that said that they just had a scientific study done, and the night sky is the blackest sky there in the country.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Like, there's some scientific proof that you can do that. But
In Millinocket?
yeah, by the Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument, because there's
no light pollution.
no light pollution for miles. And there's, scientific
They should start their
study.
own Night Sky Festival.
They should, except too many people would go. So my new thing is to find those hidden gems in our region that me, who has lived most of her life in this region, have never seen.
It's like you're a professional staycationer.
Kind of, yeah.
Have you guys done any marketing to Mainers?
We do some marketing to Mainers, mostly because as the Highlands, we do get that would be a good use of money. The state doesn't want us to use the majority of our money to market to people in our own state. They want us to market
Because they bring their
out of
own
state.
sandwiches.
Pretty much. But, when they do their study, they split it up into day trippers and overnight guests. So for us, getting people up to Dover Foxcroft from Portland is legit. So we do, we're actually going to be starting to do a radio campaign with Maine Public, which will be throughout the entire state for our next grant cycle. Sort of branding the Maine Highlands, because it's kind of this term that not a lot of people understand what it is.
I've never heard of it until
I am not
today.
surprised.
Yeah.
Because, and I think when they were like Maine beaches, you know where that is, Aroostook, clearly. A lot of the other places have names that make a lot of sense, and ours is kind of like, what else would you call it? The middle? Like the woods? Like bugs and mountains? Like, I don't know. Yeah. So we've been called the Maine Highlands. We are embracing it. And I think that over the past year or two, there have been an uptick in people interested in coming here. And I think that has to do with a lot of things, like the Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument. That was in the news for a really long time. And there was tons of coverage. The New York Times, the Boston Globe, there was tons of coverage outside of Maine.
Well, I had never been to Moosehead until last summer.
Really?
Or maybe it was the summer before. It was the first time I'd ever been, and I went to the seaplane fly-in, and it was so fun, and I couldn't believe how many people were in Moosehead.
Yeah.
Because it's really in the middle of nowhere.
It's very isolated, which is kind of...
That's probably... so I'm not helping your branding here.
But for us, that's why people come to our region. Because they want to get away from it. There isn't even cell service in most of the areas or Wi-Fi in our region. But parents can take their teenagers and plunk them up here, do something fun and amazing, and have an adventurous experience, and they can't be on their phone. They can, but there's no one for them to call because they have no service. And I think that for a lot of people, that is it could be intimidating, but it's also kind of exciting.
And that grocery store,
Indian Hill Trading Post,
it's amazing.
It's awesome.
It is the most amazing grocery store in the state of Maine besides Whole Foods.
It's pretty awesome.
It's a top contender though with Whole Foods.
You got groceries, you've got Timberland boots, you've got crawlers and fishing gear. It's pretty amazing.
It really is.
I'd never go that direction because of where I grew up is basically has the lakes and the fishing and all that, and my parents are there, so I go to Grand Lake instead. Yep. But there was this great, I forget how I found it, but I found this review that some kid did of Grand Lake Stream, which is not in the Maine Highlands, but it's the same kind of thing. And his whole thing was, this was the worst vacation ever. They don't have TVs in the camps. There was no cell service. So if you want to be bored, go to Grand Lake Stream. And I was like, well, that's kind of the point.
That's the point. Absolutely.
There are people who go specifically for that.
Yep. But there's tons of hiking. I've been doing a sort of started a waterfall tour. So last weekend, I took my son and my parents and my nieces up to Shinbrook Village. So we stopped in Patten and had some awesome barbecue at my friend Christine's barbecue joint.
What's it called?
Flatlanders.
Okay.
So good. And then we took a left and went to Shinbrook Falls, which is, you have to know kind of where you're going. And I love asking local people for directions because they're like, drive 14 miles and at, old Skidda's place on the corner, take a left. There's no sign, but,
What were we just doing? We just did this with
we were
directions.
trying to give our friend directions to Damon's.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because it was in a text thread. And so Gretchen and I were both typing at the same time and both of our responses popped up. And I said, it's over by the river before you get to Brewer, next to where bears used to be. And then Gretchen said it was a totally different description, but it's same type of direction.
It was where the old Aubuchon was.
Yeah. Yes.
And she's not from here, so she's
like, I don't know.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
But that was kind of what it's like. And you go down this wooden sign way up high and you go down and we saw these awesome waterfalls at Shinbrook Falls. If we didn't have the kids, it was an amazing, like a swimming hole at the top, but they were too little to go. And this past weekend, I was out in Greenville with my friend Angie, who is the executive director of Destination Moosehead Lake. And whenever I go anywhere with her, I end up in the craziest places. Like I'm going down like these crazy dirt roads. There's no signs. She just happens to know where it is. We went to see Big Wilson Falls, which again was down this like crazy dirt road. Like there are leaves coming in our windows. But once you get there, it was amazing. So I'm trying to find these little gems and remember to take my camera, not my camera phone, my actual camera, and capture them. And I've been, working on the Maine Highlands Instagram account with posting, got to do short videos and all. I learned how to do Instagram stories. I'm very proud of myself. But
have you seen the Instagram polls? Those are cool too.
No,
I
haven't. Neat. You might have to show those to me.
Yes.
But just finding these little hidden treasures that I feel like more people should know about because we were the only people there, literally.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
So what would be your go-to attraction in Lincoln? Because we have a family camp in Lincoln. So I go to Lincoln just about every weekend in the state of Maine. But we go just to make
that huge loon in town.
Yeah.
Have you not seen? I'm just kidding.
So I go, and then every now and then we'll take a trip in town and go to Martin's.
Absolutely.
Woo!
But I
Martin's
feel
is
like
actually a place you should stop if you're in Maine.
Yeah.
I love going to Lincoln in the fall. Because when you go over you get off the highway and you go over that bridge,
you're right.
Colors are amazing.
Yeah.
So if you want to, and they have so many lakes to choose from, and they're all pristine.
They are.
Quiet.
You see right to the bottom.
You can go out there in the fall and just get a cabin and relax. They have a ton of ATV trails there too. If you don't have an ATV, there are more businesses in Maine popping up that will rent you an ATV.
And like the side-by-sides look a lot more friendly to drive.
Absolutely.
Than a traditional
You don't have to go crazy. I mean, you can, but you don't have to go crazy. But it's a way to get you into the woods that you wouldn't be able to go otherwise unless you're on a snowmobile. So they have a ton of snowmobile trails and ATV trails there. You could walk them, actually. Just get out of the way when the ATV comes by. But I love going out there in the fall because the reflection on the water is absolutely stunning. It is quieter. They have some amazing festivals going on, like the Homecoming Festival is coming up. In the summer, they always have the baked beans. They literally make it like whole beans in the ground. They do it right. The River Drivers Festival out there.
Is that the one that Anthony Bourdain was at?
I think
it was
so.
like it was either there or Millinocket, but one of my friends, her grandmother was part of that. So that because he just died, that came up very recently.
So they have a River Drivers Festival, which they've sort of repurposed as like the Homecoming Loon Festival. They also have a Trails End Festival in Millinocket, which is like the end of the AT. It's in the fall. And I know a lot of people that have hiked the AT go back to the Trails End Festival up there and kind of celebrate. But I mean, if you look at the back of our guidebook, the events in the summer are just crazy. There's so many awesome festivals to go to.
So my daughter goes to Girl Scout camp, and it's actually located in Baxter State Park because I think the camp predates the park. So it has
maybe.
So it has a lease in perpetuity or something as a Girl Scout camp.
Yeah.
And it is probably the most, like when you go, the lake that it's on has Katahdin in the back, and here's this glassy lake in the front. And the lakes are the thing that I feel like people need to know about if you're not from Maine, because we take our lakes for granted.
Absolutely.
100% for granted. So my mom, when she moved here, she lived in Western New York State on Lake Erie. And she used to swim in Lake Erie, and this was like in the height of pollution in the 50s, you know? And she'd talk about how she'd swim, and you always swam with a breaststroke so you could push the fish out of the way. As you were, like the dead fish, to be able to swim, and that was just how it was.
Creepy and gross.
Right? And she came to Maine and she kept walking in. She tells a story that she was walking into the lake and she was looking at her feet, and she's up to her waist and she can still see her feet, and she's up to her neck, and she was like, and you can see to the bottom of the lake anywhere. Or you look at these southern lakes and they look like a cup of cream coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you jump into that?
That's why I love Moosehead, because it's not mucky on the bottom. Mm-hmm. A lot of you can find a lot of lakes in Maine that have that kind of muck. But we were up there on Friday kayaking, and you could and the water wasn't, actually it was much warmer than I had anticipated this time of year.
Yeah.
But it was so clear. I went to, with my crazy friend Angie, who knows everything, Lake Suncook, which I knew nothing about, but it's the second largest lake in Maine, and it was beautiful. So I feel like the kinds of people that come to Maine, come to our region, come inland from out of state, are not the same kind of people that go to Portland. So the Maine Office of Tourism has actually identified through their marketing agency 3 types of people that come to Maine. The first one is the social sophisticates. These are the people that like high class. They, like fine dining.
Not me. I am not a social sophisticate.
And then they have there are 2 that come to our region. They're called the Balanced Achievers and the Genuine Originals. And so these people, the Balanced Achievers, skew a little bit older with families. Genuine Originals want to be the ones that are trendsetters. They want to go where other people don't want to go. So these are the kind of the adventurer people that we try to target to come to our region. It's the people that want to get out and do stuff. They don't necessarily need a planned itinerary, but that's why it's so great to have Bangor as part of our region, because they can fly in or start in Bangor, do the art museum, the children's museum downtown, and sort of either head north, north, or northeast, and have a completely different experience.
That's why I love Bangor, because you can drive an hour in any direction or 2 hours max and be in a totally different scene. You can be at Acadia, you can be in Portland, you can be in Greenville, you can be, choose your adventure.
You can stay in Bangor, go up to Greenville, an hour and 45 minutes, hop on the Katahdin steamship, take a moose safari, go out and see some wild animals, and then come back in town and have an amazing dinner and see a show.
The other thing, too, is that I love the ocean and I love going to the ocean, but we don't do anything in the ocean because it's freezing cold up here.
No one's swimming in the ocean.
No one swims in the ocean. You could do a whale watch if you have, and I've done that when I was younger, or you could, do a tour or a boat ride or something. Mm-hmm. But the thing about lakes in Maine, I feel like the lakes sometimes get overlooked, but there's so much more you can do on a lake. And when you, in Florida, there's the Gulf Coast and there's the Atlantic Coast. And the Atlantic Coast is those huge surf, huge big waves. And I much prefer the Gulf Coast because it doesn't have that. So you take kids and you can float and you can play and you can walk and you're not worried about your kid being sucked out to sea, which has happened.
Sure.
Or
sharks.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like the lakes in Maine or like the Gulf Coast of Florida. It's calmer. You can still go on a kayak tour, but you're on a lake and you're looking down and seeing through the water and looking down through. And you can fish and you can swim and you can, do so many more things.
Yeah.
James and I have always had this debate because ideally I'd like to retire near water, but I'd prefer the ocean. And his argument is, of course, just the same as yours, Gretchen. It's like, why do you want to retire near the ocean? There's so much more you can do in a lake. You can fish, you can swim.
Yeah.
You can actually
You can have a boat. You can go tubing.
Yes.
And then in the winter it freezes over and
You can go
I have a
ice
friend who
fishing,
lives on the
skating.
lake. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love the smell of sea air.
Yeah, I do too.
And I love the tranquility of the waves
It's also
coming
cheaper
in
to
and
live
out.
on a lake.
I know all the reasons. But there's something
Exponentially.
just so peaceful about the ocean. It's one of my favorite places. And we were just in the Caribbean, and although it was beautiful there, I said it a few times when we were there. Maine oceans are so much more beautiful, even though you can't swim in them the way you could there. I just think our oceans are amazing. Like Acadia is beautiful, and it probably is the most beautiful. But when I lived in southern Maine, I went to the beaches down through there, and it's like a paradise.
There's
down
just a little
there.
bit more character to them, I think.
Yeah,
They're not all the same.
right. And it always felt like, wow, this is paradise, and here we are in Maine. And people, when you travel, they're like, why do you live in Maine? What are you doing in Maine? What do you guys do up there? There's like this interesting stigma, and there really isn't a lot of industry here, but it's so beautiful.
I had a college roommate who thought Maine was part of Canada.
A lot of people think that. I've
And
heard
I'm like,
that before.
no, that's a state.
When I was in high school, I did this travel cheerleading team, and we were in Tennessee, and so there were cheerleaders from all across the state. And I don't remember where this team was from, but they came over to us, and we were talking to them, and they said, "Oh, where are y'all from?" Somewhere in the South, they were from, and we said, "Oh, we're from Maine." They go, "Maine? Y'all have cheerleaders in Maine?" And I said, "Yeah. Why wouldn't you think we had cheerleaders in Maine? I thought all you did up there was eat crab and go to the bathroom in an outhouse."
They got it all wrong.
Yeah, they do, but we do that.
Or when I talk,
Actually, you know what? We just squat right in
Yeah.
the woods.
when I talk to people, they're like, Maine. I love Maine. Oh, it's so beautiful. Oh, and I think a lot of people have this idyllic idea of Maine, which is lobsters and lighthouses.
Yeah.
But Maine is a bigger state than a lot of people realize. And there's so much more than just lobsters and lighthouses. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love me some lobsters and lighthouses. But there's so much more. Like, I had no clue, and I found this out last year, that the Penobscot River has world-class fly fishing. People come from all over the country. Again, with Angie, she's taking me up the Golden Road to these camps. And I said to her, I'm like, what the heck would people ever come up here for and stay here in this camp? It is in legit the middle of nowhere. Like, I just spent the last 45 minutes on a dirt road to get here. And she goes, oh, well, over the bank behind you is some of the best fly fishing in the entire country. And people from all over the country come here to do that. And I was surprised. I mean, I don't fish, so why would I know that? But people from all over come here to do that sort of outdoorsy stuff. Just because I don't know about it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I mean, people come here hunting, fishing, from really all over the country.
Where do they fish in the Penobscot River around here?
I think for the fly fishing, you have to go a little bit more out there. I mean, you can.
They fish in the Kenduskeag.
Yeah.
They fish in the Salmon Club is on the
Penobscot
in Brewer on the banks of the Penobscot.
Yep.
And there
are like public.
There's also
access.
a kids fishing thing up there if you.
Yeah, and they do a lot of great stuff for the winter with ice fishing too. There's a lot of ice fishing derbies on these beautiful lakes in the winter.
So what's the go-to attraction in Bangor? We met this guy on a plane, and he's going to be flying into Bangor all summer because he's a consultant for some computer agency for the hospitals. And he said he was asking us advice on what he should do in Bangor. And we had a really difficult time coming up with ideas.
On what he likes to do. Like, there are tons of breweries. You could do a brewery tour.
We said that, yeah.
If you'd like to eat out, there's tons of places to eat out. They have, I think Bangor Green Drinks just came out with their Bangor Trails map.
Oh, I saw that. That was
which
recent.
Looks really cool.
That was cool.
And is going to be super useful. so he can do that. The university has a lot of, stuff going on. You've got some great museums up there. The shows at either the waterfront concerts or the Collins Center, probably not so much in the summer. But there's a ton of fun. There always seems to be something going on outside. Like I feel like the waterfront is really being capitalized. It seems every weekend there's something different going on.
There was like a food truck festival last weekend. There's a beer festival coming up, a wings thing.
Yeah, which is awesome. But I feel like a lot of times people that are planning these events aren't taking into consideration other people that are in the area that are also planning events. So this sort of needs to be like a clearinghouse of events.
Yeah.
Because when there's so much going on, it like your brain drowns it out.
Yeah, when we had the Bangor West Little League opening day, there were a ton of activities, and it was opened up to the whole city for kids and everything. But at that same day, there was another kids festival thing going on downtown. But the two organizers just didn't know until it was
too late,
too deep into the planning.
Which I think can be, especially with this waterfront and more people having more events on it, that can be a problem. It could be a problem having too much stuff to do. But a lot of people come in town from southern Maine, even from New Brunswick, to these concerts. Tons of people are coming in town. I mean, I don't remember who it was here, but they didn't have any hotel rooms as far away as Waterville.
Yeah, I've heard that because my sister used to work at a hotel.
Which is, you see these hotels coming up and you're like, who are these people staying here?
Yeah.
But they exist. They're coming here doing business. They're coming here for concerts. It really depends on what you're interested in Bangor. I mean, it's a great little hub. Downtown is awesome. I think Thursday nights they should be starting those concerts again soon.
Right. What are they, more Cool Sounds?
Cool Sound summer concerts. Yeah.
In Pickering Square.
Yeah.
And they have and they'll do a little vendor market usually, or the farmers markets. I think the thing that people do here is sort of nothing. That you can come here and you can be like, hey, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to walk down the waterfront, and then I'm going to walk down to Gagan's, and maybe I'll get a beer and I'll get dinner, and then I can go walk back up and check out the music. Or it's not like there's a definitive event. There's some cool festivals though in the Highlands. Like the Whoopie Pie Festival. That hasn't happened yet?
No, it's coming at the end of June, and it's fabulous if you've never been. Basically, Dover Foxcroft shuts down. And there's a really awesome state park there called Peaks Kenny State Park.
I love Peaks Kenny.
Love Peaks Kenny. We go there a lot. And if you just want to go for a day trip, they have an awesome beach with a lifeguard even. We went on Friday to Lily Bay State Park, which I hadn't been to in a really long time. But we found this campsite that had its own private access to the beach on right on Moosehead. It's right there. What I love about the state parks in our region is that and I think statewide, they're just so well maintained. You're not going to get, you're not going to be able to plug in your television and get television, but that's not really what you're going there for. One of the really fun things that I know that people like to do in the summer up in the Greenville area is to go to Mount Kineo. They have a golf course out there. It's one of the oldest golf courses in the nation. I believe it's a 9-hole golf course. There are 3 rustic state camping sites that are first come, first serve, and they have a really nice hike to the top. It's part of the Moosehead Pinnacle Pursuit, which is 6 peaks in the Moosehead region that you can hike at your leisure. And when you've done all 6, whether it takes you 1 year or 7 years, you get this cool little patch.
Oh, cool.
So I started mine with Bourdain this past weekend. And my hope is to do all of the mountains around that region. But to get to Mount Kineo in the summer, you have to take the ferry or kayak, and they have both of those options. But in the winter, you can just snowmobile over there. So it's just sort of things like that you have to sort of think about, because the summer season here is not very long. Mm-hmm. You just have to think of what you want to do. Like the Moosehead region and Katahdin in the winter, as long as there's snow, they're busy because they have a whole different clientele of snowmobilers. which is its own little awesome community. Like you can go to Canada on the ITS trails from here. And people will pop in and out, and there are lots of snowcross races, which is one of the reasons that I think Maine is pretty awesome, because it changes all year long. It's changing into a different season where you can do different things.
Yeah, I work with a lot of people who are not from Maine, and they will describe it in the same way that you just did. Let's say, you can live in Bangor and you can be in a magical place in an hour, and in the winter you can ski and you can ice skate and you can ice fish, and in the summer you can fish and snow tube.
And the thing is
water ski.
You can do these things on your own, but if you are not 100% comfortable, you can hire a guide. There are tons of people here that will help you. Like I feel like a lot of people from away, like, oh, I don't have a canoe or kayak. I can't go do that. Yes, you can. You can rent them there. It's not expensive. You can rent snowmobiles.
So my dad is a master Maine guide and has been guiding for maybe almost 50 years. And he guides people. One of the things is that there's a whole group of economic advisors and financial people that come up to my hometown every summer. They used to, CNBC or Bloomberg or one of those used to come up and do a live broadcast, but it was pretty remote, so they don't do that anymore. But they have all these huge world meetings of economic analysts up there, and they rent all the guides and they go out fishing and they write about it. So there'll be articles in the New York Times and stuff. But a guide has all the equipment, knows exactly where to go, provides all the safety equipment, can take care of you, and
you can
give
have
you a
that
good
adventure without feeling unsafe. Another place that I have found this past year is the Appalachian Mountain Club. We went out to Meadowwhistle Lodge and did a photo shoot. And it's beautiful. So they have 3 lodges out in the western part of our region.
Is Sugarloaf included in your region?
Nope. The Maine Huts to Trails is in the Maine Lakes and Mountains region. So we have the AMC. And so we have the 3 lodges, and Meadowwhistle is the newest lodge. And what you can do is, they're beautiful. There's, you're not going there to watch TV or any sort of that stuff, but you can snowshoe or ski from lodge to lodge, right? And stay, and they will move all of your stuff for you. So you put your bags, so you don't have to feel like you have to cart all your stuff. You put your bags in these little bins, they throw them in the back of a sled, and they will cart them there for you. So what might seem like an unattainable adventure really isn't if you do a little bit of research.
What would you tell someone who was coming to Maine for the first time? What should they prepare for? What should they...
Definitely in June, bring bug spray. We were up in Shimbrook Falls and just strangely weren't prepared, and we were eaten alive. But I would suggest, when anyone asks me, when's the best time to come to Maine? I usually say September or October, depending on the person. So usually if they're asking me and I say, well, if you don't have kids, come up in September because everyone's back in school. Everything is still open where you want to go. It's just not as busy.
Right. Yep.
And it's beautiful. The state has this, the Maine foliage report is awesome. And because the foliage in Maine differs depending on if you're in the mountains or if you're on the coast. So you can really plan ahead for your Maine foliage vacation or tour by checking out the regions where you want to go and historically when the peak week is. We get a lot of people that come up for that. And, a lot of people go to Bar Harbor too. But I feel like when I have been going to shows for the MOT, I go to some of their trade shows, people will say to me, I've been to Bar Harbor, I've been to Portland, what's next? And I always ask them, what do you want to do? When do you want to come? They love the foliage. And I say, well, we have this amazing scenic byway, the Katahdin Woods and Water Scenic Byway. It's beautiful. It is not congested. If you have some time, come on up, bring your binoculars, bring your camera, and do that. I saw a couple of guys, adventure photographers this year, do the 100-mile wilderness in the winter. which is not something that I would do. But if you're looking for sort of that like Appalachian Trail-esque thing and you have the time, doing the 100-mile wilderness is a lot of fun.
Have you done it?
I have not. I've done parts of it. I haven't done it. My sister hiked the Appalachian Trail and did the 100-mile wilderness. But if you're looking to not be a thru hiker but still get that little feeling, you go by some amazing waterfalls. You go right through Gulf Haggis, which I checked off my bucket list a couple years ago, and I was like, why haven't I been here before?
I've never been, but I really want to go.
Why haven't I been here
Gulf
before?
Haggis to us.
It is called the Grand Canyon of Maine. And we actually just sent a photographer out there a couple of weeks ago to capture it. We're always updating our photo library so that we have amazing photos of our region that are timely to use as promotion. If you do the whole rim trail, it's long, but you don't have to do the whole thing. You hike in as part of the Appalachian Trail. You have to, depending on which way you go in, I always go in the Katahdin Ironworks side. You have to ford a river. So you got to take off your shoes and wade through this river. And you're hiking through the woods and you just happen upon these amazing waterfalls. And it's great on a hot day because you can go swimming. You can take your dog. So dogs are welcome if you like to hike with your dog. And it's, the photographer that we sent has done a lot of photography, hiking photography. Her name's Kate Borgo. And she said that she has never seen anything like this anywhere else in Maine, which is a true testament to how beautiful it really is. And it's not that far. It's an hour from here up to Brownville Junction. And it's you stop at a little gate, you pay a little fee, and you go in and you hike for the day. If you want to do some rustic camping, bring a tent. Get a campsite along the river and have an adventure just traipsing through this wonderland of waterfalls. It's beautiful.
Cool.
You should go, Kelley.
I will.
Is it kid friendly or not?
It's kid friendly. You don't have, I would, depending on how old your kid is, like my kid would be like, my legs hurt. I can't do this. He's an indoor cat. So
how old is he?
He's 5.5.
Yeah, I get one of those.
I have an indoor cat, and my goal this summer is to get him to be an outdoor cat. So we did a short hike in May in Bar Harbor. It was the Great Head Trail. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that kind of gave him some confidence, like, yes, I can do this. I'm trying to find that in the guidebook where the Gulf Haggis is. But
yeah, I have an indoor cat and an outdoor cat.
He isn't.
One just wants to lay on the couch. The other one wants to do all the things.
I would love for him to want to do more things outside, and I feel like now's my chance. So I've given him a little bit of confidence, so I feel like I can do it.
What are some other kid-friendly destinations?
I'm going to say whitewater rafting with a caveat, because you can take kids whitewater rafting. It depends on the river, depends on the time of year, and it depends on, the level of rapids. So if you've got an 8-year-old, you can absolutely find a whitewater rafting trip for them. It might not be as exhilarating as you want. I mean, I went on a whitewater rafting trip last year where I was bounced out of the boat.
Mm-hmm. I've had one of those. I'm scared of whitewater rafting now.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I would do it again.
I went underwater and I had a life jacket on and I was submerged for quite a while. And I was pretty sure I was never coming back up. And then some guy reached in and he pulled me out of the water. And I remember saying, I will never go whitewater rafting ever again.
Okay, that's where you're going to be different from my sister.
She's into whitewater rafting?
Oh, she was an outdoor guide in the West for 12 years.
Love that.
Spent whole summers up in Idaho and stuff.
I'm a safety fanatic.
She was safe. She survived.
I know, but because I had that one bad experience, and that's why I'm also, I don't like four-wheelers, because my mom flipped me on a four-wheeler when I was, I think, 8, and my head landed. So, the seat's curved.
Sure.
When the four-wheeler flipped, my head was right underneath the curve. Otherwise, I would have been totally dead because the thing flipped right on top of me. So ever since then, I've been terrified of them. I hate them. They scare me. It's an issue. I've got safety
Not
issues.
necessarily. I mean, you don't have to take something that I
also
really
ride bike.
Yeah, ride bikes.
I love the carriage trails, and I know that's another
Yep.
Acadia thing, but it's so beautiful.
They're in here. So our region has a bunch of rail trails. So these are basically trails that used to be railroads, and they have been converted into multi-use recreational paths, which is great for people of all ages because it's not like hiking. You're not tripping over roots. Some of them you can go horseback riding on, but you can take your bicycles and go on them. And there's a whole list of them in our guidebook. The Walden Park Trail is right here in Bangor. There's some in Dover. There's some in LaGrange. So they're flatter. So, but you're not allowed to necessarily ride a snowmobile on them. But they're great walks. They're great places to take your kids and ride bikes. So if you don't want to have an ATV, then you can do the rail trails. There's a trail actually kind of from my house on Bennick Road in Orono all the way into town along the river. And it's lovely.
That's not the paved UMaine trail, right?
No, it's a different one.
Those are great trails to take new bike riders on.
Yes.
The ones at the university?
Yes.
Well, or at the university or at the
rail
waterfront.
trails.
I used to take my
Absolutely.
kids to the waterfront in Bangor for them to practice
Yep.
because there's no cars. People are really forgiving. They're nice,
Yep.
big, wide, flat, paved little roads. They feel like they're on, like, you can make different
Yeah.
routes. And when they were just figuring out how to ride bikes, it was a really great place to go and take them and let
Absolutely.
them kind of go free and get some confidence out there. And
I might take my
UMaine
kids
too.
down there tonight to the waterfront.
There's some great trails up around the university as well. I mean, we like to go to the Bangor Forest, obviously. That's a place that we like to go. If you're looking to get out of Bangor, do something with your kids, something that's really fun to do is take a ride on the steamship Katahdin. It's kind of like you can bring a picnic lunch and you just go out and you go around, and if you're interested in the history, you can listen. It's not one of those where you have to sit still. You can kind of get up and walk the decks. It's really beautiful in the fall. You can get these fall foliage tours, and they've been doing a lot of interesting events out there where they'll do like a wine pairing cruise. They'll do rock and roll cruise where they have music playing aboard this really neat old ship, which is always really fun to do.
What about moose? Do people ever ask you where to find a moose?
People ask the silliest questions sometimes. I saw a moose on my way home from Moosehead the other day.
Because, Sarah Smiley, who's been on twice, has still not yet seen a moose.
She hasn't?
No.
Well, because moose don't hang out during the day.
But she's gone to all the places like Sandy Stream Pond, where we used to go when we were kids,
Yeah.
like guaranteed to see a moose. And
She needs to go out dusk.
yeah.
Because during the day,
Well, I think even like the sports writer from BDN took her out and was like the first time he'd never, like, she's moose repellent.
My aunt just shot a moose.
she needs to hook up with a guide. Go on one of those moose safaris,
Yeah.
which go out either at sunrise or sunset. Like, people are just like walking through town like, where's all the moose?
Yeah.
You're like, they're sleeping. They're in the woods. They're taking a nap.
That'd be fun, a moose safari. Do we have a checklist? You know how they do
can
those
make
things?
you one.
We should do that. You know how they have those things that are like 48 hours in wherever. There's one for Portland, 48 hours in Portland, Maine. But we should have something like that in a checklist. Maybe just a checklist of
Almost like a scavenger
top 10.
hunt.
Yeah, or something.
A scavenger hunt for the Maine Highlands.
And then one could be kid friendly, and one could be.
Well, I've been working on, there are some itineraries in our guidebook, depending on if you have kids, if you don't have kids. And I'm going to be working on that. The Maine Highlands has a new blog that's going to be launching after the fiscal year starts, so after July 1st. And part of that blog is going to be answering the burning moose questions that everybody has, and just trip ideas. Like, if you have a day and you want to go here are some ideas of what you do.
I feel like I've just gotten ideas because I don't ever go to Greenville, but now I'm like, well, maybe we should go to Greenville.
Absolutely.
Even though we have
It's
our
awesome up there. I had never been, and
I love Dover Foxcroft.
Yeah, it is cute to
And
drive
it's
through Dover.
50 miles.
Yeah.
50 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
I love having lunch at the Mill Inn. Right in town. It's that old mill that was converted to the Mill Inn and Cafe. They have amazingly like beautiful modern rooms if you ever need a place to stay. And they have an awesome cafe. So go there for lunch. Hit up the Whoopie Pie Festival because that's a lot of fun. Sebec Lake is awesome. You can rent, I believe, canoes and kayaks right at the state park. I think it's like $2 or something.
And on the way to Moosehead too, and I don't know what town this is in, but you'll probably know, they have that Pineland Farms.
Monson's
so cute.
And
Monson's going through some sort of...
Well, because the Lieber Foundation has put a lot of money into Monson, because it's sort of like an artist enclave. And so it's kind of having a little renaissance. I was driving back the other night, and there's a new fine dining restaurant called The Quarry that apparently just opened. I haven't been to yet because they just opened, but I'm like, this is cute. This is really special. Something neat along the way. So I hope that the Lieber Foundation and the money going into that community produces some cool stuff.
And I know that Piscataquis County is doing all sorts of really interesting and collaborative work in healthcare.
Yes.
They are. I mean, it is so exciting what they're doing to connect the communities and try to get, draw on resources, but make interesting community-based programs for seniors. And
I hear the Bissell Brothers is opening up their place in Milo this summer, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I know Milo, I feel like there's been a lot of stuff going on about Milo too. And, it's just sort of like Milo. If anyone wants to find one of our guidebooks, they're absolutely free. You can pick them up at the Bangor International Airport or the Bangor Convention and Visitors Bureau. But if you are not from the local region and you want me to mail you one, all you have to do is go onto our website, themainehighlands.com, and request one. And I will put that in the mail and send it right out to you. So
and they'll have links to all this stuff in the show notes as well.
Yeah, we have maps, we have guides. I have guides from all of the chambers in our region too. So that's something that you could do. It doesn't cost anything, and we are happy to share a little bit of information about our awesome part of Maine with anyone that's interested.
There's more than York Beach.
There is.
Mark Zuckerberg did exactly what you described. Came to Bangor as the hub, had dinner at Fiddleheads. I saw him.
Yeah, went up to Millinocket.
I was so
awesome.
excited. Yeah, and then went to Millinocket. It was so weird because I was standing in the, what do they call that? The galley area. There's, where Moosehead, sorry, the entrance to Fiddlehead.
Yep.
It's like that brick.
Yeah,
it has a name.
I know. The alley?
It's like you're outside, but you're not outside.
The courtyard.
Yeah, the courtyard. And I was just talking to my in-laws, and all of a sudden I saw Priscilla, and in Bangor, a lot of people.
Right.
So it wasn't that odd to me because I looked at her and I was like, I know her. And then I went back to my conversation, and then it triggered in my brain, wait a second.
What are you doing here?
What is going on? I know her because she was pregnant, so it was very clear that it was her. And then he comes right down behind her, and I'm like, this is not happening. What is Mark Zuckerberg doing?
No, he went up to Millinocket. He talked to people up there. Millinocket is, I feel like they're just about to turn a corner. Their marathon has been amazing for that region, the Millinocket Marathon. It's free.
Oh yeah, I know so many people who have done that.
And they have people from all over the country and all over the world come do this free marathon, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, my friend said, and she listens to this podcast, so here you go. Here you go, Katie. This is a shout out to you. She said, I don't understand why Mark Zuckerberg went to Bangor. No offense or anything.
Well,
but you know what?
He went to smaller towns and regions all over the country. It wasn't just us.
Exactly. But it sounds like there are categories of people. And he kind of, I know he had an ulterior motive, but if we didn't know about that, you'd put him into that, would you say sophisticated?
I don't know.
It was the one where they
sophisticate.
Yeah, they want to find something that no one else has found.
Oh, no, the genuine original.
Genuine originals.
Yeah.
So maybe she's a social sophisticate.
Maybe.
And Highlands would just not be on her list.
No. But it's on plenty of other people's lists.
That's right. She could just stay down in Portland.
There you go. And I like going to Portland too.
Yeah,
but
me too.
Maine's a big state, and you can get lots of different things no matter where you are.
And the county, so one more thing, and I know we'll go to favorite things, but the county, and I know that's not on your service area.
No, but it's right north of us. We work with them.
We go to the county once a year because my husband's entire family's from the county and his dad's buried up there. And every year it's still so beautiful because it's just so much farmland.
The St. John Valley is beautiful.
It's so beautiful. It's just, and then the old houses with the big farms.
Yep.
And there's the peace. It's just a sense of peace.
Yep.
So it's worth going up there too.
Absolutely.
And that Hampton Inn, is it a Hampton or Hilton? Hilton
In
Garden.
Presque Isle?
Yes.
No, I think it's a Hampton Inn.
Yeah.
In Presque Isle. It's a nice hotel.
I was watching 207 the other night, and there was the food writer on there, I think from down east, and they're doing this new thing with them now. And he did this review of the Long Lake Sporting Club, which is sort of like a cult place that I have only been to once, but now I'm just kind of like, you know what? That place was awesome. I need to go back.
Yeah. And there's a great bar too in Presque Isle, Irish Settlers Pub.
Irish Setter.
Yeah, Irish Setter.
Yeah.
It's super cute in there.
Hit up Cafe Espresso because that's a really good place to eat.
Is it? Okay, I'll have to, when we go this summer, that's where I'll go.
It's awesome.
That's where I'll go. We went to, his dad's buried in, not Fort Fairfield, Ashland. And there's one restaurant in Ashland, and it's this quintessential old diner that probably smells worse than Pat's, but nothing has changed.
I love Pat's.
I do too.
That smells good.
I love Pat's.
But when you come out of Pat's, everyone knows you've been there.
You smell so bad. And if you go down to the basement, it does smell down there. Now listen, Pat's Pizza is in my top 5 faves. So I love it.
In high school, if you were sneaking some butts, with your friends, you could go home and your parents would be like, "Oh, you stink of cigarettes," and you could say, "Well, I was at Pat's."
Yeah, I was at Pat's. So anyway,
not anymore.
After the burial, we went to this little place in Ashland, and I'll find the name of it. And we walked in, and the entire restaurant stopped eating, and they all started to stare at us. It was so clear that we were from away. They're like, "Wait a second. We know everyone in this town. Who are you guys?"
I like that.
Yeah,
Nice.
It was fun.
It's awesome.
So do you have your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is I have a favorite tourism thing, and that is that I'm excited to do the whole Moosehead Pinnacle pursuit. I want to do all those mountains. But on a more personal note, my favorite thing might be my new kitten.
Oh, a kitten. That's why you referenced your child as a indoor cat?
No, I've always referenced him as an indoor cat. That's just what it is. But it's just this little thing that's bringing new joy into my life.
Yeah.
That I didn't expect to love so much. So,
is this your first cat?
It's my first cat as an adult, I guess. I always had cats growing up. I have a geriatric Chihuahua, but I'm just really looking forward to summer. My son Ian is not into computers or tablets or anything like that, which is pretty awesome. So I'm trying to be more cognizant in unplugging from that like worky world and taking my inside cat and going outside and doing some more exploring, taking him to those waterfalls. He would love those. Swim in the swimming holes.
Yeah.
Putting on bug spray. I'm looking forward to getting ready to enjoy the summer, having some whoopie pies at that whoopie pie festival.
Have you seen the new one at Specialty Sweets?
No.
Oh my god.
They married a whoopie pie and a Needham and made the most.
What? I love Needhams.
Right? And made the most Maine dessert.
Is it?
I'm like, how did it take this long to happen?
Explain this to me.
So for people who aren't listening, so a whoopie pie is basically like an inside out cake, and it has 2 cake halves, like a cake Oreo, and it has like a filling. And a Needham is a potato coconut candy that's dipped in chocolate. So they made the filling for their whoopie pies out of Needham filling. Do you know that so going back to religion, this is a dream that I had years ago that I will remember forever. And in the dream, I went to a church And instead of communion, they gave out Needhams. And they were like, because you need him. And I was like, I can get behind this religion.
I like that.
So that's the only church I go to is one that gave me free candy.
Well, and the whole thing about whoopie pies and why they have a whole festival is because you can do it really differently. Like the filling, some people make it with Crisco, some people don't. Like it's all different.
And because we have grown up in the land of whoopie pies, almost every time I do this hack, somebody comments on it. But if you're ever at a birthday party or whatever, you get a cupcake, you break off the bottom of the cupcake and you flip it over and you put it on top of the frosting, and you have now made a whoopie pie basically. Sure. And you can eat your frosting and cake ratio is consistent, and you don't get frosting on your face.
That's really important. The
it's
ratio.
A little life hack there for you.
That ratio.
I have witnessed Gretchen do this. Yes. At the community spaghetti dinner. And she was so proud of it. She was telling everyone around her, you see? You've got the perfect ratio. And I had never seen it.
Well, because people, whenever I do it, people always look at me like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So I wasn't like on a stage demonstrating.
Well, at first when you started doing it, I thought you were trying to cut half of it off to save calories or something.
Oh, hell no.
It did. It really caught me off guard because I just didn't think it was something you would do. You know, like if you're going to eat it, you're going to enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah. And then she goes into her whole... whoopie pie explanation.
No, they come up with some really interesting flavors. I really like pumpkin ones in the fall. They've got like oatmeal, red velvet. I mean, anything you can think of. Lemon cake.
The Whoopie Pie Cafe down here, which is just down the street from my house, has a ton of flavors, and they have one that my daughter likes is the blueberry pancake. So it's like blueberry cakes and maple filling.
Ooh.
And then there's one I like, it's like dark and stormy or something. It's like sea salt caramel and dark chocolate. It's really good.
Well, I've married two main things, which I also highly recommend, and it's Holy Donuts with Gifford's ice cream. It's like a brownie sundae except with donuts.
That sounds pretty
You
amazing.
have to try it.
I may be the only
Literally
person
amazing.
in Maine who isn't like that fond of Holy Donuts.
No,
I've
my
never
real
been, but
no
I've heard
Shira, one of my best friends, she isn't either. Because she just came up and she bought. I begged her to stop and get a dozen Holy Donuts, so she did, and she was all happy and fine about it. But then, of course,
is it because of your religion?
What? No. And then she texts after she gets in the car and she's like, $35.70. I don't know. And so we bought Bagel Central bagels, and then we all met up. And she probably slammed down 3 Bagel Central bagels. And she's like, these are just so much better than the Holy Donuts. I'm not into it. I'm just not that into them for how much they cost.
I'm not that into like such cakey donuts.
See, I love them.
I make a mean apple cider donut, but it takes commitment.
See, I don't even like donuts, but I like those donuts. They're so amazing.
Can we all agree on Gifford's?
Oh, Gifford's is amazing.
So Gifford's ice cream, if you are in Maine, there's a couple places in the Highlands. I mean, Gifford's, is Skowhegan part of your... Or,
It's not, but yes.
But there's Gifford's all over, so go to Gifford's.
Well, we went to
Gifford's ice cream.
Bucksport this weekend for a little like hoopla fairy festival. Actually, my camera was on the news. It was so funny. They were interviewing him and his friend about fairies. They were making a fairy house as part of the festival. But anyway, I digressed. The little ice cream shop there sells Gifford's ice cream.
A lot of places do. Yeah.
So I feel like you can get it anywhere.
Yeah.
You can get it in grocery
But you can't get Holy Donuts everywhere.
No, you can't.
They are very limited, and I've emailed them multiple times to come to Bangor, and they won't come up. I don't know. Maybe they think we're not worth having.
I really like Frank's Donuts, Frank's Bake Shop.
Yeah, I love Frank's. The owner was my phys ed teacher in high school.
Their jelly donuts are the bomb.
I'm not into that donut.
Well, there you go. There's our...
But see, now I'm like, maybe they're right with their marketing. Maybe Holy Donuts wouldn't work up here. Maybe I'm unique.
Well, think about it. You're asking someone to pick them up for you on the way, so...
Oh my gosh, they're so good. Anyway, my favorite thing?
Yes.
Oh, Gretchen. She's having
Holy
a hard time
donut.
keeping us on track today. My favorite, this in terms of places to visit, and I know this isn't in our region, but the place I love is the Back Bay, which probably isn't the right name for it, but it's in Portland. Mm-hmm. Is that the Back Bay? Mm-hmm. Or they call it Back Cove? Anyway.
The thing that you walk around?
Yeah, the walk. I just think it's a beautiful walk loop. It's a little over 3.5 miles. And you can see a lot of the city of locals. You know, there's people riding their bikes, which I don't technically think they're supposed to be riding their bikes on it, but they do. And kids. And then there's usually something going on right in that little parking lot. And then if you connect, you can go down on the waterfront the other way, all the way into the old port. And they have paddle boarding, and you can like rent little boats, and they do yoga on paddle boards. It's just the sweetest place. It's seriously one of my favorite places in Maine.
Well,
I used to live there. That's the one thing I miss. That and Whole Foods.
Well, mine is actually is a website, a service called autoslash.com, and it's for renting cars. So I've used them before, and I've introduced them to other people, and it's different. It's like you go in and you plug in your dates. Where do you want to pick up your car? Where do you want to drop it off? What memberships do you have? What credit cards do you have? So I put in that we have AAA, I have an Amex, I have a BJ's membership. I plug in all this stuff and I submit it, but it doesn't give you a result right away.
Okay.
It sends you a result usually within an hour, and then it says, here's a list of car rentals, and you click on it and it gives you better deals. So this past weekend, my mom was parked in front of our house and her car got hit by a drunk driver, and she was supposed to be driving to New York State the next day, and her plans very quickly had to change. So we ended up booking her a plane ticket, and she needed to rent a car when she got there. So this was like she was going to be there in less than 24 hours. And I was looking through all the car rental companies and our frequent flyer points and all that. And it was just like, I'm going to try AutoSlash. I know it's super short notice, but let's see. And they found her a car that was $200 less than any other site that I found. And you just click through, and it's legit. It's not like Priceline where you're paying for it. It just basically knows how to combine all of your perks and put it together. So I just did it for my trip to Denver. I have to actually reserve a car now. And I did it I've used it. I've recommended it to other people, and it doesn't cost anything. It's just a service that takes a while to think. But even then, it was within an hour, we had choices, and it's all legit companies. So some of them, sometimes depending on where I'm flying, I might see one that's like, some company I've never heard of, and I don't go. I'm like, I'm just going to go with the ones that I have like point, like Alamo or Hertz or Enterprise or any of those. It'll have all those name brands, and you go through, and it sends you right to their website with the right code plugged in. And it's kind of like honey for cars. Yeah, and then you plug in, you reserve it, and you pay when you get there, and it has never failed me. One time when we went to Texas, my sister was meeting us there, so our families were sharing cars, and so I found this great rental. And I was like, oh, great. But then I rented it. But then I realized she was getting in hours before me. So I wanted the car to be in their name. And so I emailed, like, what can I do? And it was like a person emailed me back and said, well, you can't actually adjust your rental, but I just ran it again, and here's an even better deal. So just book it in your brother-in-law's name, and he'll be the one to pick it up. And it saved us hundreds of dollars on a minivan, because it was a whole bunch of us that were splitting the cost. So autoslash.com. So when you're coming to Bangor, fly into our sweet little airport, super convenient.
Absolutely.
Where people are very nice.
Yes, exactly. Until next week, you can always find us leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. You can email us. You can find us on Facebook and like us there. And have a great week. Bye.
Bye.